If you've looked at the roster of incoming Broadway shows and thought to yourself, where are all of the new Broadway musicals this Tony season, you are not alone. Now, while it's easy to look at the fact that only 6 new musicals are opening up this season and combine that with the rising prices of tickets and declare that Broadway is a dying art form and that musical theater will never be the same again, I am here to take a look through Broadway history and let you know why that is absolutely not the case. Hi, my name is Kate Reinking. I love talking about theater because theater is life, and today I'm taking a look at some past Broadway seasons to see why the Broadway musical is alive and well, and that the fact that there's fewer musicals this season may actually be a good thing. Now, every year it seems like there's a new indicator for why Broadway is dying. Whether that's because of the lack of new musicals or the lack of original musicals and the number of jukebox musicals and musicals based off of films, or perhaps it's the number of revivals that are coming in every season. Throughout history, you can scour through Broadway World message boards and seeing people declare that this season is meh and Broadway is dying. Just reading these topics from 20 years ago feel like they could have been written on Reddit today. And I think there's a lot to be said about the changing landscape of Broadway from a business point of view. Yes, shows are more expensive to produce now than they've ever been before. And that is changing a lot of what producers are looking to produce. And yes, that is causing a rise in shows led by celebrities. Carrie Coon wasn't wrong when she said that she gets to be in a play because she was in The White Lotus. But this doesn't necessarily mean that producers aren't going to take risk on new work, that all we are going to see is revivals moving forward. And yes, there's definitely something to be said about how long it takes shows to recoup. But Broadway has always evolved throughout history. If Broadway musicals were ever going to die, it was going to happen in the 1990s. Just take a look at the 1995 season, a season that saw a total of 5 musicals, including the revivals. That season saw a total of only 2 original musicals eligible for the Tony Awards: Sunset Boulevard, a musical based off of a film, and Smokey Joe's Cafe, a revue. The following year in 1996, Rent would take Broadway by storm and change the face of musical theater for forever and the industry of Broadway. I mean, Rent invented the Broadway lottery and the non-student rush. And don't get me wrong, 6 is definitely below average. Usually in a Broadway season, we will see anywhere between 7 to 11 new musicals. That seems to be typical. But it's important to note that part of the reason why we only have 6 musicals this season is because we saw an above average amount last season with 14 new musicals. And not even just the musicals. Last year we saw over 40 new shows open on Broadway. We haven't seen those numbers since the 80s. What has stayed pretty consistent, at least since the 1980s, is the number of shows that open on Broadway every season, usually around 30 or so shows. But fewer musicals opening on Broadway than previous years is less a sign that producers don't want to take risk on new work and more a sign that there is no real estate. Yes, bringing a new musical to Broadway is absolutely a financial risk, but it makes sense for a show like Wanted that already announced it wants to come to Broadway this season to turn down a theater like the James Earl Jones that has consistently been a risk for new musicals and rather wait for another theater to open up. And as of me filming this, there is only a single theater opened up for this season still, and that is the Schubert Theater, which was full until Hell's Kitchen recently announced that it is closing at the end of February. There's just nowhere for new musicals to go. And part of the reason why we have fewer theaters available for new musicals to squeeze into is the fact that we still have 7 shows from last season still open on Broadway, and 3 still open from the season before until Hell's Kitchen closes. That is in fact an incredibly high number. And when we look at those 7 shows still open from last season, maybe Happy Ending, Death Becomes Her, Operation Mincemeat, Buena Vista Social Club, Just in Time, Stranger Things, and Oh Mary, they're all still doing remarkably well. Stranger Things was iffy there for a second, but once that final season came out, it got a huge boost. These shows have gotten to announce replacement casts, and there's also a lot of original stories, with Oh Mary being the rare play that has found success without being based off of a previous IP. Maybe Happy Ending and Operation Mincemeat are completely original works. Buena Vista Social Club is loosely inspired by the documentary and also a jukebox musical, as is Just in time, but they're both such theatrical pieces of theater. Really only Death Becomes Her and Stranger Things are truly IP based. People are craving original work and they are showing up to go see it. And part of the reason why we still have so many shows open as well is because we had more new musicals in the last 2 years than we have seen open on Broadway in decades. Last season, we saw 14 new musicals open up, 15 new musicals the season before that. To put that in perspective, the last time we saw over 14 new musicals open up in a single season was 1981. In the 1980 to 1981 season, 18 new musicals were eligible for the Tony Award. But of those 18, 5 of them closed either on opening night or during previews, and 11 of them lasted less than a month of actual performances. So is that really what we're striving for? The closest that we get to 14 new musicals in a season is 2017, when we had 13 new musicals in a season. Now, I have oft compared 2025 to 2017, both because of the amount of new musicals that we had and also the quality of those musicals. 2025, in my opinion, is maybe one of the best seasons for new musicals in the history of musical theater. 2017 is absolutely in one of the top seasons. And comparatively, a year after that season, year to date from today in 2018, there was only 6 shows still open from that season after Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Miss Saigon closed in early January. And similarly, there was only 3 shows still open from the 2016 season: School of Rock, Waitress, and Hamilton, which is still open to this day. As a result, in 2018, we only saw 7 new musicals open on Broadway. And similarly, every single one of those new musicals that opened up in the 2018 season were either based off of a film or an existing IP in the case of SpongeBob, or they were jukebox musicals / Prince of Broadway, which was Revue. And the conversation surrounding that season was very similar to some of the conversations that we're hearing today. Is Broadway dead? Is Broadway a commercial graveyard of IP musicals and jukebox musicals? And at least this season, we have Two Strangers Carry Cake Across New York, not only on track to break the Longacre curse, but also keeping original musicals alive and well this season. But musical theater did not in fact die in 2018, and in 2019, we saw 11 new musicals open up, including Hadestown, which is arguably one of the best new musicals of the past decade. Not only that, but 2019 was the highest attended season in history of the Broadway League keeping track of Broadway attendance. We don't know what happened before the 1980s. The second highest attended Broadway season in those statistics, last season. And this is not Broadway grosses, this is Broadway attendance. Despite the fact that yes, Broadway tickets are more expensive than ever before, more people are actually going to see Broadway shows than ever before. And the good news is that there's a ton of musicals that want to come to Broadway and are just waiting for the right theater to open up. And a lot of the musicals in the pipeline are original musicals. I have seen so many incredible shows that need a varying state of work, but that I could definitely see doing a Broadway run in the future. Shows like Wanted that has expressly stated it wants to come this year. It's just waiting for the real estate at this point. New musicals that have premiered at regional theaters like The Heart and Regency Girls, Galileo, and even some of the IP-based musicals in the pipeline like Broadway Vacation, which has really started campaigning for a potential Broadway run in the future, is more IP-based, but still an original story, which is an exciting future for IP-based material, as opposed to seeing another musical that is a film regurgitated on a stage. And while I definitely think that there needs to be some changes to the Broadway industry to evolve with modern technology that allows for new original works like maybe Happy Ending and Operation Mincemeat to thrive faster, I also think that musical theater is alive and well, and I cannot wait to see what new musicals come in the next few seasons. If history has taught us anything, this is just a temporary dip that is more indicative of a thriving industry rather than a struggling one. Unfortunately, one of the patterns that we have seen as the industry continues to evolve is reducing the cast sizes and orchestra sizes, but that's an entirely different conversation. Ultimately, however, the Broadway industry is thriving, just maybe not evolving in the way that we want to see it. I do not think, however, that Broadway musicals are dying. In fact, they are thriving more than ever before. Now, if you, like me, absolutely love musical theater, then please subscribe. I'm going to be starting a new series where I talk about new musicals that I've seen at regional theaters, off-Broadway, and in the West End, and what I love about them and why you should be excited about seeing them, and whether or not I think they're ready for Broadway. I've seen so many fantastic musicals that have never been to Broadway that I really want to highlight, and I hope that you are along for the journey with me. And before you go, make sure to drop a like, and thank you so much for watching.